Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking an absolute sledgehammer to a narrative you are probably seeing everywhere right now. We're going to pull back the curtain on the biggest tech myth of our era, this whole idea of the AI neo-god. You know the narrative I'm talking about, right? That artificial intelligence is suddenly woken up, that it's going to demand voting rights next week, and that these systems are the new ultimate masters of art and thought. Honestly, it's almost become a theology rather than a technology. But when you strip away the massive marketing hype and look at the actual math, the physical hardware, and the philosophy of language, a completely different, heavily human-centered story emerges.
So let's dive right into this by posing our central question. Is AI an actual, genuine creator, or is it merely a mechanical digital scripter? To find the truth here, we really have to ground ourselves in what is literally happening inside the hardware and look past the illusion. We are basically going to execute a full intellectual Wizard of Oz reveal today. We need to figure out, are these machines thinking up new masterpieces out of thin air, or are they just highly sophisticated calculators shuffling around data that we humans have already created?
To impartially test this whole idea of AI as a conscious creator, let's look at a brilliant argument from philosopher of science Stephen Meyer. His core premise is beautifully simple, yet incredibly profound. Information always arises from a mind. Meyer argues that the massive, undeniable success of large language models doesn't actually prove that machines can think. In fact, it proves the exact opposite. It proves that they absolutely cannot think without us. The machine is fundamentally dependent on an initial input of meaningful information, and that information has to come from a conscious agent. Let's actually walk through the mechanics of what researchers call AI model collapse to see exactly how this dependency works in real time. It goes like this. Step 1, you train an AI on a massive body of text written by human beings. Step 2, you query it and, wow, it outputs remarkably cogent, impressive text. But here is where the catch happens in Step 3. If you take that AI-generated output, this artificial data, and you use it to train the next iteration of the AI and then query it again, well, you reach Step 4, complete breakdown. It's exactly like taking a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Iteration after iteration without fresh human input, the system rapidly degrades into pure, incoherent statistical noise. Without the human mind anchoring it, the AI's creativity literally collapses in on itself.
Okay, so if AI isn't a conscious creator, what exactly is it? Well, we can perfectly define it using cultural theorist Roland Barthes' concept of the scripter. A digital scripter is essentially just a mechanical vessel. It processes massive databases and it blindly copies, mixes, and recombines existing human language. Think of it like a giant mental kaleidoscope. You put in old data, give it a computational spin, and it makes these curious, brand new combinations. It is a phenomenal, powerful enabler for sure, but the magic you see, that's actually just a reflection of us. It completely lacks conscious originality.
To really understand this lack of originality, we just need to look at the computer chips themselves. Deep inside the massive server farms powering AI, there is a fascinating split in the hardware. On one hand, you have the floating point unit, or what we can call the gambler. Staggeringly, 80 to 90% of AI compute relies on this hardware. It handles complex matrix operations by basically throwing darts at a dartboard. It's an approximation system making highly educated probabilistic guesses. Contrasting the gambler is the arithmetic logic unit, the surveyor, which deals in exact, strict, deterministic mathematical truths. 1 plus 1 is 2 every single time. But modern AI relies almost entirely on the gambler. It doesn't actually know the ground truth reality. It's just guessing the nearest mathematical probability.
Because it's essentially just guessing based on patterns. We can look at AI as what the source material cleverly calls the von Neumann Babelfish. If you know The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you know that Babelfish translates alien languages instantly. Well, AI operates on a very similar sequence-to-sequence mapping process. It maps a human prompt into a continuous vector space and then translates it into a new format, like, say, turning an English sentence into Python code or a digital painting. But the absolute crucial point here is that it is blindly translating these formats without truly comprehending a single syllable of it. It's a mechanism. It's orchestrating meaning, but never, ever originating it.
And this fundamental difference creates a massive divide between us and our machines. Think of human cognition as OS alpha. It's nonlinear, it's highly associative, emotional, and rooted in messy, beautiful lived experience. On the exact opposite side, we have silicon hardware. This is rigid, mechanical, and totally reliant on discrete physical state transitions, literally on and off switches. This creates what researchers call a modality gap.
It's a total mismatch in how reality is processed. Human thought is fluid and probabilistic, while the computer processor demands absolute, unyielding, deterministic execution.
So, you might be wondering, how in the world do we actually cross that massive divide? The answer is what we call a semiotic bridge, which is just a fancy way of saying text. Highly structured text, like a JSON schema or Python or even a carefully crafted prompt, is the universal deterministic interface. Text is quite literally the only way we can safely compile our fluid, boundless human intent into the rigid electrical behavior of a silicon microchip. It bridges human thought and machine action. It's the translator that forces that gambler hardware we talked about earlier to actually yield to human logic.
And honestly, this realization completely reframes how we should view our digital tools. As the source material profoundly states, we'll do a lot better at leveraging programs if we recognize their literature. I love that. Code isn't just some cold mechanical set of gears grinding away in a basement somewhere. It is a highly expressive, exciting continuation of human authorship. When you write code, or even a detailed text prompt, you are writing a specific operational story that bends the machine to your will.
For a perfect historical proof of this, we have to look at Donald Knuth and his legendary typesetting system, TeX. Back in the 1970s, he was so unbelievably frustrated by the terrible typesetting of mathematical papers that he created a system built entirely on text macros, boxes, and glue. TeX literally transforms the highly subjective, aesthetic judgments of classical human printers into scaled integers and exact mathematical tension relaxation algorithms. By using explicit text, Knuth proved you could command a rigid, deterministic machine to execute perfect, beautiful typographic harmony. The human aesthetic literally became exact, executable literature. So the absolutely crucial point is this. True authorship isn't about generating statistical probabilities. True authorship requires what legal history calls the sweat of the brow. The philosopher Hannah Arendt called this praxis, meaning it requires the actual biological friction of pushing through the messy maze of life. It's an active, engaged doing that is completely tied to human consciousness, emotional range, and social existence. An algorithm doesn't sweat. It has no inner self, no societal context, and zero drive to actually express itself.
Which brings us to the real battleground of modern creation. On one side, we face algorithmic distortion. Whenever you let the AI execute on its own, the algorithm mathematically introduces its own unpredictable high-entropy guessing which degrades your intent. To fight this, we must use human prototorsion. Think of prototorsion as your proactive, sweating, agentic intent. It's your thinking mind actively wrestling the scripter back into compliance when it hallucinates, carefully mapping your vision onto reality with high fidelity. True authorship demands this continuous human prototorsion to steer reality.
Because of this, our role is rapidly evolving. We are no longer just the solitary romantic geniuses doing every tedious mechanical stroke of the pen or pixel. We are becoming sovereign orchestrators. You are the spark. The machine is merely the medium. We provide the rhetorical strategy, the deeply human intent, and ultimately, we hold the moral responsibility for what the system outputs. The machine just sits there, waiting for your command. The magic entirely belongs to you. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder as we navigate this wild new era. AI is not a god. It's a digital scripter that will completely collapse without your mind. So the question is, will you just sit back, outsource your thinking, and settle for an unpredictable facsimile of intelligence? Or will you take the wheel, embrace the sweat of the brow, and actively wield the divine script of text to command the machine? The future of human authorship is completely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.